Rain lashed against the streets, the first real downpour after the last gasp of summer. The temperature finally dropped, and people were wearing clothes they'd pulled out of their closets weeks ago, just waiting for this. Olivia Quinn stood in front of the restaurant, shaking the water off her umbrella. After a moment's hesitation, she pushed open the door and went inside. She'd been standing across the street at the crosswalk, watching David Schuyler sitting by the window through the restaurant's clear glass, through the sheets of pouring rain. And David had seen Olivia coming from a distance, umbrella in hand. He smiled at her through the glass. Olivia followed the server to the window seat, smoothing herself down as she walked. This might be one of the last times she saw David, and she didn't want to make a bad impression. The man at the table seemed unaffected by the downpour. His suit was immaculate, not a speck of dust on it. "How's work?" David asked as Olivia sat down. His voice was still gentle, but with a newfound maturity, a grounded quality that hadn't been there before. Olivia took the lemonade the server offered, moistening her slightly dry lips. "Busy. I'm teaching 2 graduating classes. And you?" "Things get a little hectic towards the end of the year." They exchanged awkward, distant pleasantries. Just as Olivia was about to finish her 3rd lemonade, the server brought their food. Spicy chicken strips and spicy tofu stir-fry, her favorite dishes. Or, at least, dishes she used to love. David noticed something was wrong when Olivia bypassed the spicy chicken strips for the greens a second time. "You don't eat that anymore?" "I'm getting old. I prefer milder flavors now," Olivia said truthfully. If it had been before, she might have made an excuse or eaten a few bites for David's sake. But she didn't want to anymore. She had to make herself, and David, see that they didn't even know each other's basic preferences anymore. The meal wasn't exactly lively, and Olivia didn't have much of an appetite. When they were almost finished, she spoke. "What time should we go to the county clerk's office tomorrow?" A flicker of emotion crossed David's face, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He looked at Olivia and said, "You decide." Olivia didn't hesitate. "How about 10?" David agreed without objection. They didn't have children, which spared them a lot of conflict. And Olivia had no interest in taking a share of what David had worked so hard to build over the years. But David insisted on leaving her a house. David paid the bill as they left the restaurant, and Olivia didn't argue. The rain had stopped, leaving only puddles in the pitted road. The air smelled of rain, mixed with the cool breeze of autumn, which made Olivia shiver. Olivia was about to say goodbye to David at the door of the restaurant, but he spoke first. "Olivia, want to see Riverwood High again?" Olivia paused for a moment before saying yes. Their old high school wasn't far from the restaurant, just across the street. The campus security officer at the school entrance wasn't the same uncle from their time, so David traded 2 cups of boba tea for 2 varsity jackets. They put them on and slipped inside, cloaked in the darkness. The layout of the school hadn't changed much. It was still easy to see the shadow of their student days. Olivia had been back not long ago, but David hadn't returned for years. Even his last trip to Riverton was half a year ago. David felt a surge of emotion. After being away from home for so long, he couldn't help but miss it. He'd considered asking Olivia to stay with him in Sunnyside, and he'd considered giving up everything and returning to Riverton. But they both had things they couldn't leave behind. "Hey, which class are you from, wandering around out here?" "Get back to after-school study session." The campus security officer in the distance shone his flashlight at them, as Brig. HT as ever. They were almost 30 years old, but they were still startled by the shout. David reacted first, grabbing Olivia's hand and running towards the teaching building. Olivia followed David, the autumn wind whipping the corners of their varsity jackets around them. In that moment, Olivia felt like she was seeing David from years ago. The messy hair of a running boy, the beads of sweat on the back of his neck, the unrestrained smile, and the warm, sweaty feeling of his palm. It was like that afternoon, that summer, when she met David. The summer of 2007. It was the summer before their senior year, a time that was boring, hot, and tedious. Riverwood High always cracked down on tardiness at times like this, and Olivia had overslept on just such a day. She woke up to find that she only had 15 minutes to get to class. Olivia didn't even brush her hair, she just grabbed her bag and ran to school. Luckily, she made it through the school gate just as the bell rang. She'd escaped the campus security officer, but not the head of senior year, who was making his rounds. She was crouching, trying to hide, at the corner of the fourth-floor hallway, waiting for the geography teacher, who was lecturing with spittle flying everywhere, to turn around so she could sneak into the classroom through the back door. But the head of the senior class thundered, scaring Olivia half to death. "Who's late? Get over here!" Before Olivia could react, someone grabbed her left hand. She stumbled after the person, who was pulling her down the stairs. All she could see was the boy's messy hair and the corner of a math textbook sticking out of his unzipped backpack. Beads of sweat trickled from his hairline down the back of his neck, disappearing into his varsity jacket, down his spine. The heat of summer surrounded her, the cicadas buzzed in the trees, and her palm was damp and clammy. The triple assault on her senses left Olivia's mind blank, she couldn't think straight. They ran down several flights of stairs and around a few corners before Olivia finally came to her senses. The boy in front of her stopped running. He turned around, bending over with his hands on his knees, panting. Olivia grabbed the railing, breathing hard, her forehead covered in a sheen of sweat. "Next time you're late, try to avoid the head of the class. He'll call your parents if he catches you." The boy's gentle voice rose and fell. Olivia looked around, afraid of being caught by another teacher. After checking her surroundings, she finally focused on David Schuyler's face. This face. It's kind of cute. That was the first thought that crossed Olivia's mind. Her gaze drifted down to the name tag on his varsity jacket. Senior year, Science Honors Class. David Schuyler Science Honors Class was the Science Honors Class, the best science class in the school. And Olivia was in Humanities Honors Class of the Humanities Honors Class. Seeing Olivia staring at him, David waved his hand in front of her face. "You should get back to class before you run into the head of the class again." By the time Olivia came to her senses, David had already left, leaving only his back. That day, Olivia was absent-minded all afternoon. She repeated the name to herself over and over, David Schuyler, David Schuyler. But even after an entire afternoon, she couldn't remember where she'd seen that name before. That evening, before after-school study session, Olivia couldn't resist asking her bookworm deskmate, "Do you know David Schuyler?" She wasn't even sure if he was famous enough for everyone in the school to know him. Her deskmate wasn't one for gossip, and Olivia had originally planned to ask her best friend, June Smith, but June had a big mouth. Anything she knew would spread far and wide. Her deskmate's reaction surprised her. "David Schuyler? The top science student? He's always on the honor roll. Who doesn't know him?" Only then did Olivia remember seeing the nom. On the honor roll a few times. But since she was in the humanities, she didn't pay much attention to the science honor roll. And Olivia was the kind of person who buried herself in her studies, so she always heard about school gossip from June. June had probably told her about David before, but she hadn't paid attention. The bell rang for after-school study session, and the students streamed from the hallway into the classrooms. Olivia didn't reply to her deskmate. She just put her left hand under the table and rubbed her palm with her right. The sensation from that afternoon was still there, tickling, distracting. People don't pay attention to each other if their paths never cross. But once there's a connection, they can sense each other even in a crowd. That's how it was with David and Olivia. Ever since that afternoon, Olivia noticed David appearing in her life more and more. Someone she'd never seen at school before, she was now running into every day. In the hallways, on the track, in the school store. David was everywhere, and her eyes always followed him. That was the beginning of Olivia's secret crush on David. The atmosphere during senior year was always tense. Everyone was trying to squeeze every last mark out of every minute. For Olivia, Her only moments of relaxation during senior year weren't sleeping or the 2 days of breathing room after the stressful monthly exams. They were the few minutes she spent buying a breakfast burrito from the breakfast stand in front of the school, because those were the minutes she was closest to David. Sometimes she was unlucky and the previous batch of breakfast burritos had just sold out, so she'd have to wait a few minutes at the stand. Sometimes she was lucky and there were some left, and she could grab one and go. Of course, Olivia wished those moments could last longer. Much longer. David ate a breakfast burrito 4 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Senior year started at 6:30 a.m., and David always went to buy a breakfast burrito between 6 o'clock and 6:10. Then he'd stand in front of his classroom, giving himself 20 minutes to memorize English while eating. To pretend to run into David, Olivia had to match her schedule to his, showing up at the breakfast burrito stand at 6 o'clock on those 4 days. Then she'd follow David into the teaching building, holding her breakfast burrito. The humanities and science honors classes faced each other, and Olivia would mimic him, standing in the hallway to eat her breakfast burrito. Sometimes she memorized politics, and sometimes she memorized English. But in all those accidental encounters, David never noticed her. They were still strangers. That cicada-filled, sweltering afternoon seemed like a fantasy of Olivia's. Day after day. From the heat of summer to the chill of winter. Summer varsity jackets became autumn varsity jackets, and winter down jackets were layered on top of the autumn varsity jackets. The breakfast burrito stand still opened on time every morning, but David moved his routine up from 6 to 5:50. One day, before the final exams of the first semester of senior year, Olivia was summoned to the head teacher's office. The moment she opened the door, her glasses, which she'd forgotten to take off, fogged up in the warm air of the office. Even so, Olivia heard a familiar voice in the distance. "Homeroom teacher, my goal is still Sunnyside University." A moment later, the fog cleared. Olivia saw the person standing in the distance. The boy stood there tall and straight, like an unyielding pine tree. "Olivia, come over here," homeroom teacher called. Olivia didn't hear the rest of David's conversation, and her thoughts weren't on what homeroom teacher was saying. All she could think about was, "My goal is still Sunnyside University." Time had been slipping away without her even realizing it. In less than half a year, the college entrance exams, graduation, college applications, and going their separate ways would all come one after another. And until now, Olivia had always planned to apply to colleges within the province. She'd never even considered going to a school so far away from Riverton. David, unsurprisingly, came first in science on the last final exam of the first semester of senior year. And Olivia, unexpectedly, made it into the top 3 in humanities. That year, senior year only had 1 week off for winter break. After briefly celebrating New Year, Olivia ran into David at the breakfast burrito stand again, right on time. She hadn't seen him for a week, and his hair seemed a little longer, and he seemed a little taller. She used to stand next to him and barely reach his shoulder, but now she had to tilt her head back slightly to see his face. In 2008, the world was warming up. Almost every city in the country had a heavy snowfall, and even Riverton, a southern city, had one of its biggest snowfalls ever. Olivia remembered that it was snowing hard during math class. As soon as class was over, everyone ran to the hallway like crazy, ecstatic. That was normal, since it rarely snowed in Riverton. June dragged her to the hallway, but she didn't see David in the opposite hallway. "June, I'm going to get a glass of water." Olivia wanted to go to the science classroom for a reason. June was totally absorbed in the snow outside and didn't notice anything unusual. Go. Olivia walked towards senior year, science honors class, with her water glass. Their doorway was also crowded with students who'd rushed out of class to see the snow, and Olivia threaded her way through the crowd until she finally reached the door. She casually glanced into the classroom and saw David. He was sitting by the window, burying his head in a test paper. He didn't seem to care about what was happening outside. It wasn't until a few boys came in through the back door and dragged him away from his test that David smiled. Olivia watched all of this, but she didn't linger in the science classroom. She turned around and went back to the humanities classroom. Although she didn't see the snow at the same time as him, Olivia ran into David again after-school study session that evening. Few people volunteered for after-school study session, especially in the cold of winter. But Olivia volunteered. After-school study session, Olivia walked towards the school gate as usual, carrying her backpack. As she came down the stairs from the teaching building, she saw David walking in front of her, also carrying his backpack. The only lights on the road to the school gate were 2 rows of dim streetlights. The lights cast circles of light on the ground, and the wind swirled small snowflakes in the air. There was a thick layer of snow underfoot, and Olivia quickened her pace. She stepped in David's footprints, one deep, one shallow. The boy's shoulders and hair were covered with a thin layer of snow. Olivia brushed a few stray hairs away from her ear, and the tips of those hairs were also covered with tiny, salt-like snowflakes. The headphones in Olivia's ears were playing an English listening exercise. Just as she looked up at David, the exercise played the line, "When I fall in love with you." Olivia felt her heart beat faster. Winter turned to spring. The studying for senior year became even more intense, and Mrs. Collins didn't let Olivia eat breakfast outside anymore. So Olivia had fewer chances to run into David. But she still paused for a moment every time she passed the breakfast burrito stand. Olivia openly stared at David again at the pep rally. All the students were standing on the track, wearing their neat spring varsity jackets. There were 10 classes between them, and Olivia could only see a mass of heads. So she felt a secret joy when David stood on the podium as a student representative and led everyone in the college entrance exam pledge. His varsity jacket was spotless and wrinkle-free, and his face was calm. The boy's gentle voice ca me from the microphone, like the spring breeze of March, like the sweet rain of early spring. We will bring glory to our alma mater with excellent results. Pledger. Scattered voices rose and fell below the stage. The microphone announced, "Pledger, David Schuyler." Olivia quickly spoke her own name, "Pledger, Olivia Quinn." It was the first time their names had been put together like that, in this way. The science and humanities students didn't take the college entrance exams at the same school, and before Olivia could even say good luck on the exam, the college entrance exams had come and gone. The next time she saw David was the day they went back to school to estimate their scores. Everyone was gathered on the track, taking advantage of the opportunity to take graduation photos with the people they wanted to take photos with. Olivia's class hadn't taken their graduation photo yet, so Olivia was leaning on the windowsill, looking out at the track. Science honors class of the science students were taking their graduation photo. Olivia looked at David, who was surrounded by people, and felt something she couldn't quite describe. The sunlight shone on him, golden light dancing in his hair, and he was bathed in light. Olivia didn't know how to describe the scene. She didn't know if David was standing in the light or if he was the light itself. In the end, Olivia didn't work up the courage to ask David for a photo. She just took a photo of his back from a distance. He stood against the light, on the last stop of Olivia's youth. In August, at the tail end of that summer, Olivia received an acceptance letter from Sunnyside University, but David hadn't put Sunnyside University as his first choice. Olivia heard from June that David's estimated score on the college entrance exams was much higher than Sunnyside University's admission scores from previous years. His teacher had suggested he go to Tongji University, which was better than Sunnyside University. Fortunately, David's score on the college entrance exams was more than 20 marks higher than Tongji University's admission line that year. It was a distance of 1,476 kilometers, the distance from Sunnyside to New Haven. That summer ended in a hurry, and before Olivia could even feel regret, time had pushed her towards her 18th birthday. She knew that this summer would end, and that she and David would both be heading towards their own lives. Olivia thought, "I wish David all the best." During her 4 years of college, Olivia met a great group of roommates from all over the country. But only one of them was from New Haven. She often heard this roommate talk about New Haven, sometimes the weather, sometimes the local food. Olivia didn't think about David often, but she couldn't help thinking about her high school days when she heard these snippets. Those days, when she had a secret crush on someone. Olivia majored in English in college, a major that was completely unrelated to David's major in computer science. Olivia really liked her major, but when she heard the line "When I Fall in Love with You" on her headphones during the Level 6 English exam in her sophomore year, she still froze for a couple of seconds. Olivia had 2 relationships during her 4 years of college. The first was with someone in her major, just because the boy's voice sounded a lot like David's. That relationship ended when the boy caught a cold. The second relationship was with a boy in the computer science department. Although he was in the same major as David, he wasn't like David at all. By then, Olivia thought she'd moved on from David. But she didn't stay with the computer science boy for long. After less than a semester, Olivia broke up with him, saying that she hadn't fully invested herself in the relationship. Olivia only heard about David a few times when she went home for Christmas/New Year, from June. Even in college, he was still as dazzling as ever. He was talented and good looking. But whenever David's name came up, Olivia was always taken back to that summer. During the first semester of her senior year, a huge change took place in the Quinn family. Mr. Quinn was knocked down by a motorcycle on his way home from work. It was a winter evening, and it was dark early, and the road was already deserted, so no one found him in time. By the time someone finally took Mr. Quinn to the hospital, it was too late. Mr. Quinn died in the hospital 2 days later. Olivia took 2 days off from her internship to rush back to Riverton and see Mr. Quinn one last time. Overnight, Olivia felt like she'd grown up a little. It was also because of Mr. Quinn's sudden death that Olivia changed her mind about staying in Sunnyside after graduation, even though she was already interning at a well-known company in Sunnyside. Mrs. Collins, even though she was grieving the loss of her husband, still advised Olivia, "Go develop your career in a city bigger than Riverton." Olivia's mind was a mess, and she said she'd think about it. But when Olivia returned to Sunnyside, she ran into David in that city. The former classmates were all seniors, and the graduate entrance exams were over, and those who weren't taking the exams had already found internships. So the old classmates decided to gather all the students studying in Sunnyside for a meal on New Year's Eve. Olivia returned to Sunnyside on New Year's Eve. The dinner had been going on for a while when Olivia finally arrived. The moment she opened the door, she froze. Because someone she hadn't expected to see was at the table, David Schuyler. David obviously didn't recognize her and assumed she was just an ordinary classmate. Seeing Olivia staring at him, he gave her a polite, courteous smile. They hadn't seen each other in years, and the boy had grown into a man. He hadn't changed much, he was just as Olivia remembered him. Although Olivia was surprised, she only hesitated for a couple of seconds before away. "Olivia, come in, over here." Her former deskmate had also come to study in Sunnyside and had saved her a seat at the table. And that seat happened to be next to David. As Olivia walked towards David, she subconsciously smoothed out her travel-rumpled clothes. During the meal, Olivia pieced together why David was in Sunnyside from what the other classmates were saying. Near graduation, everyone was thinking about their future plans. David was no different. Like 4 years ago, he had chosen to start a business in Sunnyside, the city he loved the most. So he had come to Sunnyside with a few partners before graduating. Olivia pretended to be nonchalant, but her heart skipped a beat. Back then, she'd applied to universities in Sunnyside for David's sake. But now that she was thinking of returning to Riverton after graduation, David had come to Sunnyside. Olivia didn't say a word to David during the meal. But David remembered the girl next to him who kept reaching for the spicy chicken strips. After the meal, everyone offered rides. Olivia didn't expect David, who was standing next to her, to ask her, "Which district do you live in?" Olivia tensed up, and her words were slightly stuttered. Futian District. David smiled under the streetlight. I'm in Futian District too. We're going the same way. By the time Olivia came to her senses, she was already in the passenger seat of David's car. The heater was on in the car, and a thin layer of fog covered the windows. Olivia sat in the car, unable to see the scenery outside. David spoke first. Were you in the humanities class? I don't think I saw you at Riverwood High. Olivia looked down, picking at the corner of her cell phone case. As expected, he didn't remember her. Her voice was muffled. Yeah, I was in humanities honors class. David Schuyler asked Olivia Quinn in a casual tone. Did I hear them call you Olivia Quinn? Yes, Quinn like the flower. I'm David Schuyler. Olive. A Quinn looked up at David Schuyler and said softly, I know. David Schuyler didn't catch it. What was that? Olivia Quinn shook her head. Nothing. What are you studying at Sunnyside University? How did you know I was at Sunnyside University? Olivia Quinn countered. David Schuyler smiled. It just came to me. The head teacher mentioned that only one person from our year went to Sunnyside University, and her name was Olivia Quinn. Olivia Quinn hadn't expected him to remember that, perhaps because Sunnyside University was a dream of his. English. That's great, David Schuyler said. His voice was soft, but it felt heavy in Olivia Quinn's heart. The restaurant wasn't far from where Olivia Quinn lived. Because of her internship, Olivia Quinn had moved out of the dorm with her roommate at the beginning of her senior year. David Schuyler stopped the car at the entrance of the old neighborhood, and Olivia Quinn thanked him before getting out. As soon as she stepped out, she was enveloped in the coolness of the evening. She tightened her coat and walked towards the entrance. Just like in her senior year of high school, she still didn't have the courage to ask David Schuyler for his contact information. Just when Olivia Quinn thought she and David Schuyler would never cross paths again, David Schuyler's voice came from behind. She turned around and saw David Schuyler rolling down the car window, leaning against it. His voice was as gentle and pleasant as it had been back then. David Schuyler asked her, Olivia Quinn, can I get your text? Looking at the new contact in her cell phone list, Olivia Quinn felt a mix of emotions. The person she didn't have the courage to approach back then now had his contact information at this crucial moment. Later, Olivia Quinn learned that the studio David Schuyler had rented for his startup was just upstairs from her internship company. 15th floor and 17th floor. The distance of 2 floors also narrowed their distance. Sometimes, if they were going to work at the same time, David Schuyler would give Olivia Quinn a ride. Sometimes, if she finished work late, Olivia Quinn would bring takeout up to the 17th floor and wait for David Schuyler to get off work together. David Schuyler's university classmate, Zach Adams, was starting the business with him. Zach Adams saw Olivia Quinn often and would occasionally joke around, calling Olivia Quinn's sister-in-law. Every time Zach Adams called her that, Olivia Quinn would subconsciously look at David Schuyler's reaction, but David Schuyler never reacted, leaving Olivia Quinn at a loss. As senior year approached graduation, Olivia Quinn's class took graduation photos at the beginning of June. She didn't expect that David Schuyler would bring a bouquet of flowers to her graduation ceremony that day. Olivia Quinn looked at David Schuyler standing under a tree in the distance, and the only words that came to her mind were serene beauty. That day, she wore her graduation gown, holding the bouquet of sunflowers that David Schuyler had given her, and took their first photo together. The regrets of high school were filled on this graduation day. At the moment the shutter clicked, Olivia Quinn felt that she had never forgotten David Schuyler all these years. In June, the temperature in Sunnyside had already risen, and there was a hint of summer in the air. She had to admit that after spending 4 years in Sunnyside, Olivia Quinn had fallen in love with the city. Olivia Quinn walked with David Schuyler on the campus of Sunnyside University, shoulder to shoulder like ordinary friends. She lowered her head and fiddled with the bouquet of sunflowers, and as if she had remembered something, she suddenly looked up and asked the person next to her, "What's the meaning of sunflowers?" David Schuyler stopped and turned to look at Olivia Quinn. His Adam's apple bobbed as he said, "My eyes see no one else, everywhere I look, it's you." Olivia Quinn paused as she fiddled with the flowers. She stared into David Schuyler's eyes and forgot to blink. Another summer. She heard David Schuyler ask her, "Olivia Quinn, would you consider being with me?" The summer breeze carried a salty taste, and Olivia Quinn's brain was occupied by this sentence over and over again. She heard herself say, "Okay." Immediately after graduating senior year, Olivia Quinn received a full-time offer from the company. She naturally stayed in Sunnyside with David Schuyler. It was only after they were together that Olivia Quinn learned that David Schuyler hadn't lived in the same district as her the night he took her home. He had only told a harmless lie to go the extra mile. David Schuyler's startup didn't go smoothly at first, but later it gradually got on track. Their lives went from a one-bedroom apartment to a two-bedroom apartment, and then they adopted a cat together. It was during the summer of their first year together that Olivia Quinn found a kitten downstairs from her office building. David Schuyler named the cat Summer. In the summer of 2014, David Schuyler's company had major financial problems. Zach Adams, who had always jokingly called Olivia Quinn's sister-in-law, disappeared with a large amount of the company's funds, which was all the capital for their next project. In other words, David Schuyler had been set up by his partner. Overnight, the project was suspended, and the employees were either laid off or resigned. The 17th floor was suddenly empty, and everything that could be used to pay off debts was taken. Even the house that David Schuyler had bought for Olivia Quinn in Sunnyside as a wedding gift was mortgaged to the bank. This sudden change caught David Schuyler off guard, and his hard work since college was ruined overnight. It also made him, a proud person, suddenly bend under the weight of life. David Schuyler couldn't understand why Zach Adams would take the money. House prices had soared in those years, especially in Sunnyside, where every inch of land was precious. Olivia Quinn took the devastated David Schuyler in summer and moved from a two-bedroom apartment back to a one-bedroom apartment. Fortunately, Olivia Quinn had some savings in the bank that she had been accumulating since college, which now became the family's emergency fund. That summer remained bitter and gloomy in Olivia Quinn's memory. This setback didn't make David Schuyler get back on his feet immediately. All his bad emotions erupted when he saw a strange man driving Olivia Quinn home. It was the first time Olivia Quinn had seen a different side of David Schuyler. He didn't get angry with Olivia Quinn, nor did he vent his anger at home. He just hugged Olivia Quinn for a long time and then calmly proposed breaking up. Olivia Quinn didn't agree. It was also the first time she had seen David Schuyler cry in front of her. That night, the cicadas outside the window were chirping loudly. They lived on the second floor of an old neighborhood, and outside the window was a towering tree. Because they wanted to save electricity, Olivia Quinn didn't turn on the air conditioner. In the 35 degrees Celsius weather, only a floor fan was working, whirring. Olivia Quinn only closed the screen window, and the hot summer wind blew in through the holes, making people feel hot all over. The room wasn't lit, and the moonlight shone in, casting white and black streaks across the room. David Schuyler hugged Olivia Quinn from behind, resting his head on her shoulder. His voice was low and somewhat unclear, but Olivia Quinn still heard him clearly. David Schuyler asked her, "Olivia Quinn, should we have a baby?" Olivia Quinn, who had closed her eyes, opened them again and turned over in David Schuyler's arms. In the dark night, David Schuyler's eyes were still bright. So bright that Olivia Quinn almost agreed without thinking. But reality pulled her back. If they had a child now, could they guarantee the child's future? She cowed. Didn't, and neither could David Schuyler at this moment. Olivia Quinn felt the temperature around her gradually rising, and her clothes were stuck to her body with sweat. This sticky feeling made her feel uncomfortable all over, and she made an excuse to break free from David Schuyler's arms and went to the bathroom. After taking a shower, she felt much refreshed. The chaotic thoughts in her mind were also much clearer. Olivia Quinn tiptoed back to the room, where the moonlight was still shining. David Schuyler was facing the window, with his back to Olivia Quinn. He had lost a lot of weight during this period, and his shoulder blades poked out against his clothes. Olivia Quinn didn't know if he was asleep or not, but she still lay back on the bed and hugged David Schuyler from behind. Olivia Quinn paused for a few seconds and whispered in David Schuyler's ear, "We can't have a baby yet." She could feel David Schuyler stiffen in her arms. Olivia Quinn paused, not giving him time to overthink, and continued, "But David Schuyler, will you marry me?" Olivia Quinn thought that David Schuyler had taken the initiative to get her text, and he had also taken the initiative to say they should be together. So this time, she would take the initiative to get married. The two rushed to the county clerk's office to get their marriage license at the end of summer. Olivia Quinn's hands were still shaking when they came out of the county clerk's office. There was no diamond ring, no wedding dress, and no proper wedding. Olivia Quinn just married herself off to David Schuyler like that. After getting their marriage license, the lives of the two didn't change much. David Schuyler sent his resume to various companies, and fortunately, he received several good offers not long after. At the same time, the police also arrested Zach Adams in Greenfield. Olivia Quinn also heard David Schuyler say that Zach Adams's father was a gambling addict and heavily in debt, and he had no choice but to misappropriate the company's funds. Only some of the funds were recovered, but it was enough to pay off David Schuyler's remaining debts. Everything seemed to be getting back on track. The two families agreed to set the wedding date for the end of the following summer. David Schuyler was busy with the wedding preparations, while Olivia Quinn became a hands-off manager. The venue and guests for the wedding were all taken care of by the elders of both families in Riverton. It wasn't until Olivia Quinn walked down the aisle in her wedding dress that she felt like she was really getting married. The bridesmaid was undoubtedly June Smith, who couldn't believe it from the time Olivia Quinn and David Schuyler got together, and she didn't come to her senses until the two of them stood at the door greeting the guests today. David Schuyler was just planted on Olivia Quinn. The wedding went very smoothly. It wasn't until the MC said, "The groom may kiss the bride," that Olivia Quinn realized that David Schuyler's hands had been trembling slightly all along. Olivia Quinn thought that the two of them were really good at that time. After the wedding, the two returned to Sunnyside. The pace of life in Sunnyside was much faster than in Riverton, and the two didn't even go on a honeymoon before returning to work. In 2016, the internet was developing rapidly, and David Schuyler quit his job without discussing it with Olivia Quinn and began preparing for his second startup. The company where Olivia Quinn worked was experiencing a decline in economic efficiency year by year, and there were rumors of layoffs. Coincidentally, the supervisor in charge of the layoffs was the one who had driven Olivia Quinn home and pursued her unsuccessfully. Olivia Quinn wasn't on the list of layoffs, but her name was added to it. When Olivia Quinn came home early with a box of materials, she unexpectedly saw David Schuyler at home, who shouldn't have been there at this time. "Why are you home?" "Oh well." Olivia Quinn sat on the low stool at the door and changed her shoes. David Schuyler sat on the sofa, sorting out the documents, and casually said, "I quit my job and I'm going to start a business." Olivia Quinn's hand holding the slipper froze in mid-air. "Why didn't you discuss quitting your job with me?" David Schuyler looked up at Olivia Quinn and was suddenly speechless. He didn't know why he was afraid to tell Olivia Quinn, whether he was afraid of his second failure or afraid that Olivia Quinn would object. For a moment, all the explanations were stuck in his throat, and there was a long silence in the air. Seeing that she was carrying a box of things when she came home, David Schuyler chose to change the subject. "Why are you back so early today?" Olivia Quinn put her shoes in the shoe cabinet and said after a few seconds of silence, "I was laid off." "Why were you laid off?" David Schuyler didn't understand. Olivia Quinn shook her head, not wanting to explain to David Schuyler. "It's okay, take a break at home for a while. I'll support you during this time," David Schuyler comforted her. In an instant, all the grievances she had been holding in welled up because of this sentence, and Olivia Quinn suddenly asked loudly, "What are you going to support me with?" Starting a business without even discussing it with me? Or the little savings we have? David Schuyler was stunned by Olivia Quinn's shout, but he quickly reacted. Olivia Quinn really wanted to tell David Schuyler the reason why she was laid off, and she also wanted to get to the bottom of why he didn't discuss the startup with her. But in the end, she didn't say anything and just turned around and went back to her room. Later, Olivia Quinn repeatedly recalled her 5 years of married life with David Schuyler and realized that they had been on different paths since this moment. David Schuyler would do whatever he wanted to do, no matter how hard or tiring it was. But Olivia Quinn wasn't like that. She was content with the status quo and just wanted a stable life. This quarrel ended with David Schuyler backing down first. He promised Olivia Quinn that he would discuss everything with her before making a decision in the future. Olivia Quinn didn't say anything more. After that, Olivia Quinn resubmitted her resume and chose a decent offer. It's just that she and David Schuyler worked on opposite sides of Sunnyside, and both of them were starting from scratch in their current jobs, so they had less time to spend together at home than before. 2017, David Schuyler's company caught up with the new trend of the internet era, and the company's team developed rapidly in a year, growing from a team of just over 10 people to a large group of dozens of people. The company was undertaking more and more businesses, and David Schuyler was spending less and less time at home. As their conditions gradually improved, they moved back to a larger apartment than the previous 2-bedroom apartment with Summer, and they also changed to a better car than before. But Olivia Quinn wasn't doing well at her new company, and there was no one to talk to about what happened at work. She suddenly missed the old days when they didn't have a big house, but at least there was someone to talk to. June Smith's wedding was scheduled for the winter of 2017 in New Cambridge. Olivia Quinn wanted David Schuyler to go with her, but David Schuyler had to go on a business trip those days, so she had to give up. Olivia Quinn's flight from Sunnyside to New Cambridge was at dawn, and David Schuyler hadn't come home by the time they had agreed to take Olivia Quinn to the airport. Olivia Quinn didn't make that familiar call, but instead pushed her suitcase, locked the door, and went downstairs. As soon as she walked to the entrance of the old neighborhood, she saw David Schuyler's car slowly driving towards the entrance. David Schuyler stopped the car in front of Olivia Quinn, got out, helped her lift the suitcase into the trunk, and asked, "Why didn't you wait for me to come back?" Olivia Quinn got into the car, fastened her seatbelt, and replied, "I was afraid you wouldn't make it back in time and would miss the flight. There were red lights all the way back, which delayed me a bit," David Schuyler explained. Olivia Quinn nodded and didn't say anything more. It had been 3 days since she last saw David Schuyler. Seeing him again at this moment, there was a sense of estrangement between them. There were red lights all the way to the airport. They stopped several times in the middle of the road, and Olivia Quinn felt awkward, so she started a conversation with David Schuyler. "I gave June Smith a wedding gift of $66,600. I promised her that back in high school." As soon as she finished speaking, David Schuyler received a call. Judging from the tone of David Schuyler's voice, it seemed like an emergency, so Olivia Quinn didn't say anything more. David Schuyler mouthed something to Olivia Quinn while answering the phone, and Olivia Quinn saw it too. He was saying, "Whatever you decide is fine." The call didn't end until they were almost at the airport, and the timing was perfect, not leaving the couple any more space to be alone. David Schuyler took the luggage out of the trunk and handed it to Olivia Quinn, while reminding her, "Remember to check your ID, remember to take your boarding pass. If it's cold on the plane, ask the flight attendant for a blanket." Perhaps it had been too long since she had heard David Schuyler say so many things in one breath. Olivia Quinn felt a warmth in her heart. She nodded and said, "Okay." As Olivia Quinn took the suitcase and turned to leave, David Schuyler suddenly grabbed her and said, "Honey, give me a hug before you go." In Olivia Quinn's memory, David Schuyler rarely took the initiative to call her honey. Sometimes, even when they were arguing fiercely, David Schuyler would call her Olivia Quinn in a serious tone. She didn't know why he had blurted out this title that he wasn't good at using. Olivia Quinn didn't understand it until she boarded the plane. Some things are easier to see when you're not directly involved. Olivia Quinn couldn't see through her and David Schuyler's situation, but June Smith noticed that something was wrong between them at a glance. Before the wedding started, June Smith pulled Olivia Quinn aside and asked in a low voice, "Are you and David Schuyler fighting?" "No," Olivia Quinn shook her head. "They really weren't fighting." "Then why isn't he here with you in New Cambridge?" Olivia Quinn thought for a moment and said, "He's too busy." "Come on. The man who used to follow you around even when you went to try on wedding dresses is now letting you come to New Cambridge alone?" June Smith said disdainfully. This year, even Olivia Quinn herself had lost count of how many things she had used the excuse David Schuyler is too busy to brush off. June Smith continued to ask her, "Is his business getting better and better, and he's seeing someone else?" Olivia Quinn shook her head. No. She couldn't say what was wrong between her and David Schuyler. But when she watched June Smith walking down the aisle in her wedding dress, walking firmly towards the groom, she seemed to see herself walking firmly towards David Schuyler back then. At that time, all she wanted was to have a future with David Schuyler. If June Smith's words had given her a nudge, then what happened in 2019 was the last straw that broke their marriage. That year, Olivia Quinn was 29 years old. Her marriage to David Schuyler had lasted for 4 years. In those 4 years, David Schuyler's company had steadily developed into a large company and was getting closer and closer to his original dream. 2019, summer, the cat they had raised together, also left them that summer. It was one time when David Schuyler came back to pick up a document and forgot to lose the door, and Summer ran out and was beaten to death by the neighborhood campus security officers as a stray cat. Olivia Quinn was sad about this for a long time. She didn't know if this was a sign, but Olivia Quinn felt that Summer's departure seemed to foreshadow the end of her and David Schuyler's relationship. Not long after Summer left, Olivia Quinn received a call from the Riverton Hospital. That early summer, Mrs. Collins was diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer. It was also because of this that Olivia Quinn decided to leave the city where she had lived for 11 years and return to Riverton. When she heard David Schuyler say that he couldn't accompany her back to Riverton for the time being, Olivia Quinn felt a sense of relief in her heart. Perhaps from the beginning, she hadn't had any expectations of David Schuyler on this matter. Olivia Quinn resigned from the company, packed her luggage, and hurried back to Riverton. The hospital gave her 3 months, the last 3 months of Mrs. Collins's life. Olivia Quinn stayed by Mrs. Collins's side every day, never leaving. She told Mrs. Collins interesting stories about working in Sunnyside, as well as things that happened in college, but she didn't talk about her and David Schuyler. Mrs. Collins seemed to have noticed something, and she slowed down her speech and said intermittently to Olivia Quinn, "David is a reliable person. You married him when he was at his lowest." Mom didn't object, because Mom knew he would treat you well. Now, your life is getting better. David is busy. You must learn to understand. Mom doesn't want you to break up at this time. This long string of words took too much of Mrs. Collins's energy, and that night, Mrs. Collins slept for a long time. And then she never woke up again. Olivia Quinn didn't cry as loudly as she did when she lost her father, because she knew that she was the only one left in this family. David Schuyler bought the earliest flight back as soon as he heard the news. Mrs. Collins's funeral was held in the fall. After the funeral, Olivia Quinn proposed a divorce to David Schuyler. Olivia Quinn was dressed in black, with no expression on her face. She stood in the rain, holding an umbrella. Beside her was David Schuyler, whom she hadn't seen in a long time. Olivia Quinn looked up at David Schuyler, her eyes met his. She could still see herself reflected in those black glass eyes, but she no longer wanted to sink into them. "David Schuyler, let's get a divorce," Olivia Quinn said. Mrs. Collins's departure finally made Olivia Quinn wake up from her dream. She finally woke up from the beautiful dream she had woven for herself. She and David Schuyler might have been wrong from the beginning. If she hadn't overslept that summer, she wouldn't have met David Schuyler. If she hadn't filled out all her college applications in Sunnyside because of David Schuyler, she wouldn't have stayed in Sunnyside for 11 years. If she hadn't agreed to be with David Schuyler that summer, they wouldn't have been together. If she hadn't said let's get married to David Schuyler that summer, they wouldn't have had such a long marriage. For a moment, she didn't know whether to blame herself or David Schuyler, or to blame one summer after another. She thought that nothing had changed between her and David Schuyler, but in fact, they had both changed. In this marriage, she had never forgotten all the good things David Schuyler had done for her. It's just that the David Schuyler who could go to the supermarket with her to buy groceries and cook was lost in the vast years, and what defeated them was nothing more than the trivialities of real married life. David Schuyler, let's get a divorce, Olivia Quinn repeated. David Schuyler didn't know why he and Olivia Quinn had come to this point in this marriage, where there was no betrayal and no life and death separation. And he always wanted to give Olivia Quinn the best of everything. But he forgot what Olivia Quinn wanted most. Olivia Quinn felt that the bravest thing she had ever done was to say goodbye to David Schuyler, who had occupied most of her youth, on her 30th birthday. Mrs. Collins had left Olivia Quinn 2 houses in Riverton. One was prepared for Olivia Quinn to get married, but Olivia Quinn was in Sunnyside all year round, so the house was left idle. The other house was the old house where they used to live, which Olivia Quinn could sell or keep. Olivia Quinn returned to Riverton this time, renovated the new house, and moved in. Suddenly returning to the slow-paced city of Riverton, it took Olivia Quinn a while to adapt. Olivia Quinn took advantage of this time to apply for a job as an English teacher at a high school, and didn't go back to working in English in a company. The Schuyler family had moved to New Haven a few years ago, and Olivia Quinn didn't let David Schuyler stay in a hotel this time. The apartment she now lived in had 1 bedroom and 1 living room. She lived in the bedroom, and David Schuyler lived in the living room. The two came back from Riverwood High, said goodnight, and Olivia Quinn went back to her room. She slept on and off, and she always dreamed about what happened in high school that night, maybe because she had gone back to Riverwood High with David Schuyler. She woke up in the middle of the night, and it was still 2 in the morning. Olivia Quinn was drowsy and walked to the refrigerator in the living room to get a glass of ice water. After drinking a glass of ice water, she felt a little more awake. David Schuyler on the sofa didn't know what he was dreaming about and was muttering something. Olivia Quinn didn't want to go closer to listen and planned to go back to her room after drinking the water. But just as she turned around, David Schuyler's muttering suddenly became clearer, and the distance between them was enough for her to hear clearly. Can we not get a divorce? Olivia Quinn. Don't get a divorce. It would be a lie to say that she didn't feel anything in her heart. Olivia Quinn quietly walked over and tucked the thin blanket over David Schuyler. The man on the sofa seemed to have changed a little from the boy in her memory. She squatted by the sofa, propping her chin up with her hands and looking at him. Olivia Quinn had never told David Schuyler about their first meeting. She always felt that it didn't matter if David Schuyler didn't remember, what mattered was the present, the future. David Schuyler, do you remember? I don't know if you remember, but I always remember. That summer, I overslept during my afternoon nap, and you pulled me out of the head teacher's sight. Our meeting was much earlier than when you knew me. I thought I could only make you know me by going to Sunnyside University. I didn't expect that we would miss each other for another 4 years. David Schuyler, maybe life is just a constant series of missed opportunities. The next day at 10 o'clock, the two appeared on time in front of the county clerk's office. Emerging from the county clerk's office, Olivia Quinn felt a sense of relief she'd never known before. In the end, she accepted the house David Schuyler insisted on compensating her with, saying it was to make up for the year he'd mortgaged the wedding home he'd given her. They said goodbye at the entrance of the county clerk's office. A farewell that would likely be their last. One in Riverton, the other in Sunnyside. Just as Olivia had known back then, David would never agree to return to Riverton with her. Just as she was unwilling to stay in Sunnyside for him any longer. When neither was willing to compromise for the other, their relationship had reached its end. Olivia called out, "David Schuyler." David Schuyler turned to look at Olivia. The autumn sunlight fell on David, making him appear as if he were bathed in light. He came from the crowd, and now he would return to it. Olivia smiled in understanding. "David Schuyler, I wish you all the best. In the end, the prince will meet his princess, and Cinderella will wear her glass slippers." But Olivia would never grow old with David. Perhaps the heavy snow that year had fulfilled her dream. Life is like a dream, and in that dream, it's always summer.